Long before the hum of cars filled our cities, and before endless ribbons of asphalt stretched across continents, the world was a very different place. Travel was slow, difficult, and often dangerous. People moved on foot, or perhaps with the help of animals like donkeys or horses if they were lucky. The paths they followed were not paved roads as we know them. They were simple dirt tracks, worn into the earth by generations of footsteps. These trails often followed the natural shape of the land, winding through valleys and around steep hills. A journey that takes us a few hours today could have taken weeks or even months for our ancestors to complete, facing unpredictable weather and unknown dangers along the way. Imagine trying to move an entire army or transport heavy goods like stone or grain across this landscape. It would have been an incredibly slow and frustrating task. The dirt paths would turn to thick mud in the rain, making them impassable for carts. In dry weather, they would become dusty and uneven, slowing down even the most determined traveler. There were no signs to guide you, no bridges to cross wide rivers, and no inns to rest in at the end of a long day. Communication between distant towns was almost non-existent. News traveled only as fast as a person could walk or ride, meaning a message from one end of a kingdom to another could be old news by the time it arrived. This isolation made governing large territories nearly impossible. This was the challenge that faced the great empires of the ancient world. They had grand ambitions to control vast lands, to trade with faraway peoples, and to spread their ideas and culture. But how could they hold everything together when the world was so disconnected? How could a ruler in a capital city give orders to a governor hundreds of miles away? How could they respond quickly to a rebellion on a distant frontier? The simple, winding dirt tracks of their ancestors were not enough. To build an empire, they needed something more. They needed a way to conquer distance itself, to connect their sprawling domains with reliable, all-weather routes. The solution was revolutionary, yet elegantly simple in its concept-built roads. Not just paths, but engineered highways designed for speed, efficiency, and durability. These were not merely routes from one place to another. They were instruments of power, arteries of commerce, and conduits for culture. By investing enormous resources and manpower into these projects, ancient civilizations fundamentally changed the human experience of travel and communication. They laid the groundwork, quite literally, for a more connected world. These ancient highways were the first great infrastructure projects in history, and their impact would be felt for centuries to come, shaping the very map of the world. So, why did ancient rulers pour so much effort and wealth into building these extensive road networks? The primary reason was military. An empire is only as strong as its ability to control its territory, and control requires speed. Rulers in Rome, Persia, and other great powers needed to move their soldiers quickly from one end of the empire to the other. A fast, well-maintained road allowed legions or armies to march swiftly to crush a rebellion or defend a border from invaders. Without these roads, a small problem in a distant province could escalate into a major crisis before the central government could even react. The roads were the lifelines of imperial security, ensuring the emperor's authority could be felt even in the most remote corners of his realm. Beyond military might, these roads were absolutely essential for administration and communication. Imagine being an emperor trying to govern millions of people scattered across a vast area. You would need to send out decrees, receive reports from your governors, and collect taxes. The Persian Royal Road, for example, had a system of relay stations where fresh messengers and horses were always waiting. This allowed official messages to travel with incredible speed for the time, connecting the empire in a way that had never been possible before. This network was the ancient equivalent of the internet, a system designed to transmit information rapidly and reliably, holding the complex machinery of the state together. Of course, roads were also powerful engines of the economy. Once a road was built for soldiers and messengers, it was soon filled with merchants and traders. Goods that were once local specialties could now be transported hundreds of miles to be sold in bustling city markets. Things like olive oil, wine, pottery, textiles, and precious metals moved along these routes, creating a vibrant, interconnected economy. This trade brought great wealth to the empire, funding its armies and its grand building projects. The roads encouraged economic specialization, as different regions could focus on producing what they did best and trade for everything else they needed, enriching the entire society. Finally, we must not forget the role of roads in spreading ideas, culture, and religion. As people traveled, they brought their beliefs, languages, and customs with them. The Roman roads, for example, were instrumental in the spread of the Latin language and, later, Christianity throughout Europe and the Mediterranean. People from different backgrounds met and mixed in the towns and inns that grew up along these highways. This cultural exchange was a powerful force for change, sometimes creating a shared imperial identity, but also sparking new ideas and philosophies. The roads did not just carry soldiers and goods, they carried the very essence of civilization itself across the ancient world. The Romans were perhaps the most famous road builders of antiquity, and for good reason. Their motto could have been "All roads lead to Rome," and they built over 50,000 miles of high-quality paved highways to make that a reality. Roman roads were marvels of engineering, built in straight lines whenever possible to ensure the fastest route. They were constructed in layers, with a deep foundation of packed earth and gravel, topped with larger stones, and finally a surface of smooth, tightly fitted paving slabs. They included features we would recognize today, like bridges, tunnels, and even milestones to mark the distance. These roads were so well built that they could withstand centuries of heavy traffic from marching legions and iron-wheeled carts. Long before the Romans, however, the Persian Empire created its own magnificent highway, the Royal Road. Stretching over 1,600 miles from Susa in modern-day Iran to the Aegean Sea in Turkey, it was the backbone of their empire. While not always paved like Roman roads, it was expertly maintained and designed for rapid communication. The Greek historian Herodotus wrote with great admiration about the Persian courier system, which used a series of over 100 relay stations along the road. He famously noted that neither snow nor rain nor heat nor gloom of night stays these couriers from the swift completion of their appointed rounds, a phrase that now inspires modern postal services. This system allowed royal messages to cross the vast empire in about a week. In a completely different part of the world, high in the Andes Mountains of South America, the Inca Empire built an equally impressive, though very different road system. Known as the Capac Ñan, this network spanned over 25,000 miles, connecting the diverse regions of their sprawling empire. Because the Incas did not use wheeled vehicles, their roads were designed for people and pack animals like llamas. They were masters of building paths through incredibly difficult mountain terrain. They carved steps into steep rock faces, built suspension bridges from woven grass to cross deep canyons, and constructed causeways over marshy wetlands. This incredible system allowed armies, administrators, and messengers to move swiftly through the challenging Andean environment. Each of these systems was perfectly adapted to its environment and the needs of the empire that built it. The Roman roads were built for heavy carts and large armies moving across the rolling landscapes of Europe. The Persian road was a communication superhighway designed for speed across the vast arid plains of the Middle East. The Inca road was a masterpiece of mountain engineering, a network of footpaths binding together an empire in the clouds. What they all shared was a vision, the understanding that to build and maintain a great empire, you must first build great roads to connect it. These highways were the physical manifestation of imperial ambition and ingenuity. What became of these mighty highways? Remarkably, many of them have survived the centuries. In parts of Europe, you can still walk on the very same stones that Roman soldiers marched on 2,000 years ago. Some modern roads in Italy, Britain, and France are built directly on top of the original Roman foundations, following the same straight, logical paths laid out by their engineers. These ancient routes have so deeply shaped the landscape that they continue to define the patterns of travel and settlement today. They are not just museum pieces. They are living parts of the infrastructure, a testament to the incredible durability of Roman construction and the enduring logic of their roots. The legacy of these roads extends far beyond their physical remains. They fundamentally shaped the course of history. The Roman road network, for instance, was a key factor in the unification of their empire, creating a shared economic and cultural space around the Mediterranean. Later, these same roads helped missionaries spread new religions like Christianity. The Inca road system was so effective that the Spanish conquistadors used it to travel through the Andes and conquer the empire. The very tool the Incas had used to build their power became a path for their downfall, showing how infrastructure can have unintended consequences long after it is built. These roads were channels for power, and that power could flow in more than one direction. The story of ancient roads also teaches us a powerful lesson about human connection. These highways were the first great projects that truly brought distant peoples together on a large scale. They broke down the isolation of small villages and distant regions, creating a world where goods, ideas, and people could move with relative freedom. They were the physical foundation for the first globalized economies and multicultural societies. By looking at a map of the Roman or Persian road networks, we can see the outlines of a connected world beginning to form. A world that we are still building upon today with our own highways, railways, and digital networks. In the end, these ancient highways are much more than just old paths. They are symbols of human ambition, ingenuity, and the timeless desire to connect with one another. They remind us that the challenges we face today of governing large areas, fostering economic growth, and encouraging cultural exchange are not so different from the challenges faced by the rulers of ancient empires. The solutions they found, carved in stone and earth across continents, laid the foundation for the modern world. They show us that to build a future, we must often follow the paths laid down in the distant past, learning from the enduring echoes in the stone.